Noble Gold specializes in including precious metals or Bitcoin into your individual retirement account. Please view their ad at the end of this report. Good afternoon. I'm still reporting on Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin smashed through the $5,000 barrier after weeks of inching up to the line once again. BTC, as it is known, started out the year at $966 and is now worth 4 times as much as an ounce of gold. The last time it ran up to the $5,000 mark on September 1st, the Chinese government banned it 3 days later when it realized that this decentralized form of money was threatening to do an end run around their centralized control of all things. The same week, J.P. Morgan chairman and CEO Jamie Dimon proclaimed it to be a fraud that will eventually blow up. Here's Dimon at the Delivering Alpha conference in New York on September 12th, courtesy of CNBC.
You made a comment earlier today that Bitcoin was a fraud.
Yeah.
Why is Bitcoin a fraud?
Yeah, so separate blockchain, which is a technology, from Bitcoin, the currency. And now there are multiple currencies, and so I'm talking about not Bitcoin per se, I'm talking about currencies. You know, the first, and the reason, and I'm not saying go short, because I know Jim Chanos was up there. You know, Bitcoin can tell $100,000 of Bitcoin before it goes down. So this is not advice on what you do. My daughter bought some Bitcoin and it went up and she thinks she's a genius now, but here's the reason. Governments, the first thing they do is form a currency. They like to control the currency. They control it through a central bank. They also like to know who has it, where it is, where it's going. Okay, and you just saw China just is closing down the Bitcoin exchanges. And all I ever said is that at Bitcoin, the bigger these things get, the more governments, right now, they look at it as a novelty. Wait until someone gets hurt. Wait until it's used for illicit purposes, which it is somewhat used for illicit purposes. They close it down. And that's my point. So it's not, you can argue and I also said there's a good reason for it. If you're in Venezuela or Ecuador or North Korea, you're better off probably using Bitcoin than using their currency. That can't possibly be true in the United States, unless you're speculating. And that isn't a reason to say something has value, because other people are going to speculate. That's tulip. And that's what I was saying. So I don't think, and also, like I said, the other reason to close down is because it's used for illicit purposes. And so it's just not a real thing. And
Russian President Vladimir Putin this week called for the regulation of cryptocurrencies, saying there are serious risks, basically because it's a new form of money completely outside of his control. However, 2 weeks ago, Japan actually recognized Bitcoin as a new payment method. Despite this unprecedented attack on Bitcoin, after 2 weeks of crashing prices, it bottomed out on September 15th at $3,069 and started a slow but inevitable march back to the $5,000 mark. Today's jump may have come on speculation that China may soon lift its ban on cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin still has enemies, big banks, privately owned central banks, and gold speculators whose misguided mantra is, real money must have intrinsic value. Ken Rogoff, professor of economics at Harvard and former IMF chief economist, has long predicted that blockchain will thrive, but Bitcoin's price will collapse. He wrote in The Guardian this week, "It is folly to think that Bitcoin will ever be allowed to supplant central bank-issued money." Daniel Murray, global head of research at EFG Asset Management, is a good example of the economic nonsense that still predominates the anti-Bitcoin group. Investors buy an asset because they are seduced by the prospect of further rapid gains without necessarily thinking about intrinsic value. But then this morning's Guardian report paraphrased Murray thusly. Historically, currencies were backed by precious metals, and these days most currencies were based on macroeconomic fundamentals such as inflation, interest rates, and growth, and were backed by a central bank and government. What blather! It's no wonder these guys don't see the fallacy in the debt money system that is slowly bankrupting and enslaving every nation on this planet. This entire system of voodoo economics will someday soon be seen on the same intellectual plane as flat earth believers of old. Here's what's really going on. Bitcoin is mankind's natural reaction to the chains of the debt money system. People worldwide are finally realizing that the current system is the biggest financial scam in world history. Sovereign governments have given away their ability to control their sovereign money. Bitcoin is a revolutionary new money system, one that is outside of the control of all politics, all bankers, all governments. It just is. More and more investors are getting it. Michael Novogratz, a former manager at Fortress Investment Group, said on CNBC late Tuesday that he would not be surprised to see Bitcoin trading at $10,000 in the next 6 to 10 months. Governments can temporarily scare the price of Bitcoin to collapse, but it inevitably will rise to ever greater heights time after time. Why? Because unlike all debt-based money, the quantity of Bitcoin being mined, that is created, is slowing dramatically, whilst the world population and its debt money races ahead logarithmically. The truth is that Bitcoin is the new standard upon which all money will be based, whether governments, banks, or central banks like it or not. I'm still reporting from the one-time free speech capital of the world. Good day. This report is brought to you by Charles Thorngren of Noble Gold.
But we now have the ability to get not just gold and silver in your IRA. We are the first and the only company to have a depository in the state of Texas. The great thing about Texas as well, all your metals are in your own box inside the vault. They're not commingled with anyone else's, and they are insured against all events by Lloyd's of London. So if anything happens to the depository, your metals are replaced ounce for ounce. But we also offer Bitcoin for your IRA. When you see the kind of volatility that we see, Bitcoin just makes more sense.
Call Charles Thorngren at 877-646-5347 for a quick, honest, no-obligation assessment.